While Russia is opening its biggest economic forum in St. Petersburg, Ukrainian drones are hitting Russian oil infrastructure. Moscow is admitting for the first time that oil production is falling. And Kremlin ideologue Alexander Dugin is presenting slides about Russia's future up to 2036. According to those scenarios, Russia occupies Kyiv, Odessa, Kharkiv, the European Union falls apart, and in one version, Moscow even uses nuclear weapons. Joining me now is Michael Sheitelman, political strategist and commentator. Michael, it's always a pleasure to have you here. Good evening.
Good evening, Natalia.
So, let's dive in and start with Dugin that I mentioned. At the St. Petersburg Forum, he presented several scenarios for Russia's future, but somehow all of them are focused not on Russia becoming, an economic miracle, not an overtaking, Singapore or Dubai, not on building a normal future for its own people. Why is Ukraine still at the center of Russia's entire vision of its own future?
During not only till 2036, but also till 2050, this scenario was presented till 2050, and it is important to understand that Mr. Dugin presents something on this forum. It means that this presentation was approved in administration of President Putin, because this is like personal forum of President Putin. This is not the private party. And when philosopher Dugin presents something in his university, for example, it could be his own opinion. But when we hear that from stage of this main flagship event in Russian Federation, so this is in some sense also the opinion of administration of President Putin. That is important. Now they presented three different scenarios, which is called like optimistic, realistic, and pessimistic, something like that. And the realistic scenario meant that if we don't change anything, if we continue like we behave now, it means Russia. So in 10 years, we will use atomic bomb. This is realistic scenario, yeah? And till 2050, Russia will be destroyed totally and disappear. That's realistic scenario. Well, and so what is pessimistic scenario, you should ask? So pessimistic scenario that Russians, they don't use atomic bomb, they lose the war during 10 years, they lose the war to Ukraine, and Russia will be occupied by Ukraine and NATO forces. And only an optimistic scenario, we win war from against Ukraine in 10 years, and afterwards Russia will be the main kingdom of the planet, etc., etc. So it sounds very, let's say, ambitious. The optimistic scenario sounds very ambitious, yeah. But all of that would be very funny if Mr. Dugin was not the official philosopher of Kremlin and official philosopher of President Putin. So mostly the ideas of Putin, which he presents as an ideology of Russian Federation, this is the ideas based on this absolutely absurdistic philosophy.
Yeah. The reason I just recalling an old jokes, and I know that the jokes is mostly your part, Michael, but still I'm recalling the old joke, daddy joke of when Putin is dying and he's getting to somewhere, and not to heaven, but somewhere elsewhere, and asking an angel, what is the price for beer? And he's saying to him, 20 hryvnias. So the sense right now is about that eventually it could happen. But does it mean that right now that they even considering that type of scenario for losing? That's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting change. Yeah. So one step back. Yeah, when you started, I just got your idea that Russia lives in Ukraine-centric world, really. And all the Russian news, for example, all the Russian talk shows on main TV stations were Ukrainian-centric, not the Russian-centric. They don't discuss anything that happens inside the Russian Federation. Mostly they don't discuss Russian economy or Russian sociology or Russian human development or anything, or Russian culture. They mostly discuss Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian constitution, for example. And in most of his speeches, President Putin speaks about Ukrainian constitution, Ukrainian election, Ukrainian corruption, by the way. Also, when he when he says something, anything about the war, he says, for example, that in occupied territories, they killed 20 people, for example. And he says, wow, Russia should make the revenge for that. For 20 people, 20 Ukrainians, they killed on Ukrainian occupied territory. But he does not care about thousands or tens of thousands Russians who were killed during last month, for example. So his speeches always considered to Ukraine. And I found the new, with most of opinion makers in, some of opinion makers in the Russian Federation, they started to say, but why our president always talks about Ukraine and not about Russia? He is not president of Ukraine, he's president of Russian Federation. So this is also one of the reasons why in last 3 months, really this change in Russian public opinion happened during last 3 months. During last 3 months, first, what changed in Russian public opinion? First, before that period, Putin was out of the criticism. You could criticize everything, government or some minister or some oligarchs or, I don't know, generally Russian political system or something, but not Putin himself itself. But now, yeah, you could criticize Putin. This is opened. This is just opened, yeah? And the second message is, if Russia loses the war. This scenario was not in Russian public discussion during 4 years of the war, but starting from the year number 5, it is the part of public discussion. And always we discuss, if we lose the war, so the scenario will be like that. This is very, very important change. So Russians, they started to believe that they could lose the war.
And in addition to that, I was reading from Firepoint today that in a few months, by the end of summer or the beginning of autumn, Ukraine can use its own ballistic missiles against Russia.
Yeah, but let's say that will be not the main change in the war. Yeah, this will be the major change in deep strikes, really in deep strikes, because now Russia has this advantage that they could use ballistic missiles against Kiev, for example, and Ukraine could not use the ballistic missiles against Moscow. We have ballistic missiles like ATACMS and Ukrainian analog of ATACMS, but this is around front line, 200 kilometers from the border. But the deep strikes to Moscow and St. Petersburg, which will be very important cities, we don't have it. It will change only one part of the war, because our war consists of front line, middle strikes, and deep strikes. So it will change only deep strikes. And it will not change the fate of Russian Federation. This is good news, but not the magic.
What do you think about the American representative at the forum in St. Petersburg?
Oh, that is not important what I think about American representative. That is
what America thinks. What America thinks about their representative. Right?
Yeah, exactly. What America thinks about this representative, because this is the very long story. It started about 3 weeks ago when Russia proclaimed that first time in 12 years, America sends the official delegation to this flagship economic forum. It is important to say that this forum, this is not just one of the lot of forums. For Russia, this is the absolutely main event. We can only compare it with parade in Moscow on the Victory Day. So this is like Victory Day in economy for Russians. And this is like a child of Mr. Putin also. And Putin personally personally gave the long speech about Russian economy and generally about geopolitics from the stage of this forum. So they proclaimed that, wow, we have the official American delegation. And afterwards, they explained that the delegation will consist of one person. One person is Mr. Cook, who was defined as a minister of fine art. I don't know what is the minister of fine art in the United States. It was the news for me that exists some minister of fine art. And this Mr. Cook, he also said, yeah, I officially represent United States. And yesterday he arrived to the forum and he gave, as a present from President Trump, some copy of some picture from any monastery in United States. That was some very strange story. But Russian media coverage, all of the Russian media coverage yesterday about this forum was around the figure of Mr. Cook. That, wow, we have the American official, this is the first time. Every correspondent on every TV station or another news outlet of Russian Federation, they mentioned that, and that was the central material about the forum. But Americans are here. But yesterday, Marco Rubio was asked in Senate why State Department sent the delegation to this forum of Mr. Putin. And Marco Rubio said, no. First time I hear about any delegation, we did not recognize any delegation. We did not send any delegation to Russian Federation. And somebody from congressman asked him, but you know that the actor Steven Seagal, the movie actor, I mean, he is the member of this delegation. And Marco Rubio said, but Steven Seagal is not representative of United States of America. He does not represent not State Department and not White House, nothing. So generally it was the Russian trick that we invited somebody and they said that this guy is minister, but he's not the minister, absolutely not. And as always, they built around that fake story. They like that. They usually build a lot of faked stories about they want to be loved by America. They want to be the partner of America, and America does not want Russia as a partner. And they always invent a lot of stories like Putin and Trump in Anchorage in Alaska on their meeting and their summit. They decided the fate of this globe on this world. But Mr. Trump does not know about that. He never heard about that. By the way, the good news from Russian Federation, which appeared just a couple of hours ago, that one of Putin advisors, Cyril Dmitriev, who is also special envoy of Putin, when he sent him to Florida to speak with Steven Witkoff usually, he said that tomorrow, on Friday, will be signed an agreement between the United States and Russian Federation about building the tunnel between United States and Russian Federation. On the north, between Alaska and United States and Chukotka in Russian Federation. There is the Bering of Sea, and under this sea, this is 85 kilometer, will be built this tunnel. But I'm sure that also this contract will be signed with Steven Seagal, not anybody else.
So no legal force behind this contract, right?
Nobody knows about that. Who has the proxy to sign this delegation? So who could sign the contract? Steven Seagal, in theory, could sign this contract and to start to dig the tunnel immediately at the same day. From one side, from Alaska, Steven Seagal started digging, and from another side, this Cyril Dmitriev, the advisor of Putin, start digging. And in the middle, after 80 kilometers, they will meet one another under the sea. And so they will have a tunnel. But the only problem here, and only very discussion point, that if they couldn't achieve, it couldn't meet one another. You know what will happen if they don't meet one another under the sea. So we will continue to dig, And we will have two tunnels, one tunnel of Steven Seagal and another one of Cyril Dmitriev.
But for whatever reason, this information is, I mean, what's behind it? They want to create a picture of what? Of that still there is a context between Moscow and Washington? So close?
Yeah, sure. Who is in charge of this contacts generally, not about the tunnel, but about the diplomatic contacts? Mr. Lavrov, who is the foreign minister of Russian Federation, and he is now in suspension, not official suspension, but he's not in the favor of President Putin now, and he did not appear on the parade on Victory Day, which is very important signal from Russian authorities. And the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Lavrov, he tries to report to Putin that, wow, I rebuilt the relationship with United States, because he is now the enemy, like main enemy of America. He's in very bad relationship with Marco Rubio, and he invites the faked minister of United States, and he reports it to Putin that, Mr. Putin, dear President, we will have the official American delegation. That's the important point. The same problem has Mr. Dmitriev, Cyril Dmitriev. He was in charge of negotiation between America and Russian Federation. He was the head of this negotiation. And America stopped this negotiation, officially withdrew their delegation from any negotiation with Russian Federation. So it means that Cyril Dmitriev did not succeed, and he lost this negotiation. And he should report to Putin that, dear President, I lost everything. I'm a loser. But he couldn't do that. So he invented this idea of building the tunnel, and he will report to Putin, wow, we signed. You see, this is the agreement with Steven Seagal that we will build the tunnel.
Really, I'm just searching. Yeah, I'm surfing the internet. It's just all over the place. Like Russia is ready to dig a huge tunnel to Alaska. Well, you know, Michael, what?
By the way, you know that for our American audience, or let's say not Russian-speaking audience, it is important news that this Alaska is the very developed region of United States, obviously, like in other regions. But Chukotka in Russian Federation, it is a remote region which is not connected to Russian Federation. So they don't have any road. For example, you can't take the car in Moscow and drive to Chukotka. You don't have any roads, just anything. You can just fly by plane, but not to drive. And this is thousands of miles without any roads, just any. So if you build this tunnel is absolutely senseless. You build the tunnel to Chukotka, and population of Chukotka is 50,000 people, 50,000. They have one gas station in this city, and just nothing else. So how could you use this tunnel anyway? It is absolutely not clear.
I'm just watching the comment, and unfortunately, I cannot roll it right now. But I'm just watching some influencer from the United States, Candace Owens. She's conservative influencer. She's a political activist, and I'm right now see like how the Russian channels, Russian propaganda channels like Россия, Известия, they just you know. Attacking her with a microphone, and she's just explaining something about funding the Ukraine. And she's saying that we're so tired because people in Ukraine are buying yachts while we're sending our money for a weapon or support or something. Well, do you think she's kind of such a people they paid by the Kremlin from Russian pocket? Do you think they look like an assets?
Yeah, that's Russian assets, obviously, or they use somebody who has a position like that. The truth is, America does not send any money to Ukraine during the presidency of President Trump. It was in the previous period of Biden presidency. Ukraine received a lot of funds from American budget as international aid, but President Trump just stopped that totally. And now Ukraine buys the weapon from United States and pays the money with market price, as President Trump himself mentioned. So the people who Russians invited to Russian Federation to this forum, well, let's start from Steven Seagal. Steven Seagal got the Russian citizenship and he spent most of his time in Russia. And about these guys and girls who were also invited, this is very typical scenario. I will not speak now about these girls you mentioned, but they invited some investor, or I don't know, I don't remember who is this guy, American also, who is under criminal investigation now for something very bad. I don't remember, pornography or pedophilism or something like that. I don't remember. And
yeah, there was something like sexual abuse, or yeah, I was reading. Yeah,
some trade by people trade or some human trade. And this is the normal policy of Russian Federation now, to invite people like that. For example, in Russia, they have also, for example, the football championship, soccer championship. And part of the foreign way they could buy the foreign footballers, because they are under sanctions, and the normal process of to buy football players from European clubs, it is banned for Russian Federation. So they buy anybody who is under criminal investigation. For example, one guy who played in from Netherlands, who was under investigation for drug dealing. he went to Moscow to play in Spartak Moscow. And this is the normal story. They find just around the world all these strange guys. By the way, the father of Elon Musk participate in this economic forum. Why he participates in that? Because he is father of Elon Musk. He is not the businessman. He does not have any connectivity to economy or investment or something. But this is the father of Elon Musk. By the way, they put the title on him when he appears. The father of Elon Musk. This is the official title of this guy, Errol Musk or something like that. So they believe that we brought the Musk. It is not the same Musk, but it is some Musk we could brought.
Yeah, I'm just checking the pictures of Steven Seagal because I know he's a super tall man. And you're right, he's capable. He's almost 2 meters, so he's capable to dig the tunnel by himself. But yeah, I'm just watching the pictures. Yes, and I'm just watching the pictures of him and shaking the hand of dictator Putin. And they're like the elephant and, the fly, just... This is
exactly, because President Putin he's 160 tall or something like that. So yeah, Steven Seagal is the elephant with the red.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what else? Marco Rubio made a rather striking statement. He said that Russia's invasion of Ukraine was a strategic mistake and that Moscow may never achieve through military force even the goals it is currently demanding at the negotiation table, or, well, there is no negotiation, but it's still. So, could you please help me to understand this? If Washington already seems to recognize that Russia cannot achieve its objectives on the battlefield in Ukraine, why does President Trump still act as if Ukraine is the one that needs to make, concessions for peace, or it's not relevant anymore?
It is not relevant anymore. President Trump, last time when he mentioned Ukraine and President Zelensky, he said that Zelensky is a very tricky guy and Zelensky has some advantages in Ukrainian army, in drone systems. And he said that Ukrainian army is stronger than all European armies together. This is the quotes from President Trump. So he changed his mind, absolutely. I don't say, let's say not mind, but the policy. He changed his policy. This is the first. Second, during last, I couldn't say exactly, but I believe it is about 3 months, we somewhere lost this negotiation group of Jared Kushner and Steven Witkoff, they did not appear as a middleman with Putin now. And they stopped this practice after the war in Iran started, because they lost the negotiation with Iran and they lost the negotiation with Russian Federation. So maybe they are not trusted person now in White House. And Marco Rubio, he took the process in his hands. And all of the international processes, also the negotiation in Iran. Now we hear reports not from Vitkov, but we hear reports from Marco Rubio. And about Moscow and Russian Federation also, this is the first time during the war when we regularly hear something from Marco Rubio about that. Just yesterday he said that White House administration participate in preparing the new legislation about new sanctions, not only against Russian Federation, but also against the third parties, third countries who help to Russia in this war. And this also big news. And the next big news was that first time during Donald Trump administration, they prepared the package of military aid. This is about $400 million. This is also the news from Marco Rubio. And about negotiation, he said that they don't continue any negotiation with Russian Federation now, and they don't have any negotiation process. So yes, the most important point, not only the change in policy of White House, but also change of the personality, who is now the main personality of negotiation or war against Russian Federation. Now it is Marco Rubio and not anybody else now. That is the important change. And in autumn, when we have midterm election, we will also see if what is the role of Marco Rubio, how it will change after midterm election. It also could be very big change inside, American administration, because from the first half of term of President Trump, which was the term of a lot of initiatives from Trump and a lot of his relatives in administration, we will come to the second part of this term, which will be the preparation to the new election. And obviously, Marco Rubio is one of the candidates of Republican Party, and he will take a great role, I believe, in this process of war and peace with Russian Federation.
I just see that Putin gave a statement. I don't know whether it's a fresh one at Clash Report. And they're saying, just quoting, he's saying, we have full control of the Luhansk People's Republic. We have also acquired control of about 85% of the Donetsk People's Republic. 80% of the Zaporizhia region is under our control, and this process is progressing. And yeah, and it's keep going, everything about Ukraine. To whom this message for?
Well, about Lugansk region of Russian Federation, they reported that they occupied all the territory of Lugansk region in summer 22 to 2022. So this is report number 100 about that. So this is difficult to commentate when I did not hear it personally, but that you gave the quote about Lugansk region. So by official Russian propaganda, they occupied that successfully 4 years ago, but they report only now.
Okay. I don't know. I was thinking that it's something, but while I was reading, I was like, okay, maybe that's not something new. Yeah, but Michael, what a turnout, I would say. Just over a year ago, we kept hearing that Ukraine had no cards, no leverage, no path to victory, and now Marco Rubio is openly saying that Russia may never achieve militarily the goals it is demanding. So that's a good one.
The change is huge. Yeah, the change in our situation is very, very big and considered by all the sides except of Russian Federation.
I was reading that Latvia's chief of defense recently said that if he were sitting in the Kremlin, he would see a potential window to test NATO before the end of 2028, before Europe fully rearms. How realistic is that concern, or you don't see any?
Well, we should consider that this is the new chief of Latvian defense. In Latvia, just now, the government changed. And that is very interesting point that this change was connected to Russian Federation directly. The government change after the previous government fault exactly on the about of situation with Russian drones. Russia sent the drones to Latvia, and one of these drones struck to oil station in Latvia, and previous Minister of Defense was sacked from the previous government, and government was fallen on that. And now this is the new government, which was just a couple of days ago just appeared, the new government, and they start from some strong statements, yeah. And one of the statements should be that we are Europe, we are strong, we are united, we will build the new army. Is it true or not? It depends on the big countries, not on Latvia, obviously. It depends on France and Germany, and it depends on, for example, on the very important question, who will be the next president of France? Because Emmanuel Macron is ready to build the European army, and I believe that also Chancellor Merz, he is ready to build the new European army, but I am not sure about the next president of France. We will see that next year.
Yeah, absolutely. My last one, I would say, that I was reading at Foreign Policy that the second Putin's headache after war in Ukraine is Chechnya right now, because something is very unstable happening there. Do you agree with that?
No, the rumors we hear during all of our war at least, and I believe that longer, because Chechnya is not stable region, yes. But it does not change during the last decade, for example. The same situation in Chechnya. So I don't see any reason to say, wow, this is the point of instability. The point of instability, the second after the war against Ukraine, is economy. Economy in Russian Federation, because Russia has a huge budget deficit, also as federal and also on regional level. We have now a deficit of gasoline, of gasoline for aircrafts, etc., etc., etc. So this is the second problem of President Putin.
Okay. Yeah, I would just... Okay, I think we have to round up, but I haven't asked you about Russia is now acknowledged for the first time that oil production is down this year. But before this, they were not admitting that officially. But this time they said, okay, we're in a bad place.
Not only down, but on the lowest level in last 7 years, something like that, okay. Which is important, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's good that they can admit something, honestly. At least. Well, Michael, thank you so much for your time, and see you next week, I hope. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Natalia. Bye.
Thank you, Mike.